Though he slay me, I will trust. If your faith has fallen, let this raise you. Not with comfort, not with inspiration, but with fire, with sword, with promise. Because the ones who fall are not always the weak, they are often the tired. Tired from war, tired from silence, tired from carrying a cross when no one else sees the blood. And maybe that's where you are. You've read the words, but they feel empty. You've sung the songs, but they do not shake the gates. You've stood in the church, but your knees still buckle when the darkness speaks. This is not judgment. This is a call, because even the strongest have wandered. Even the chosen have wept alone beneath olive trees. Even the prophets have begged for death in caves. Even the Christ cried, "My God, why have you left me?" But he did not stay in the garden. He did not remain in the silence. He stood. He obeyed, he rose, and so must you. Do not look to people for your fire. Do not wait for a crowd to prove your sword is real. You are not called by applause, you are called by promise. The Lord is not seeking the loud. He is seeking the loyal, the ones who will still kneel when the room is empty, still fast when the body screams, still believe when the ground beneath them cracks. So return not with emotion but with decision, not with tears but with teeth clenched in holy determination. Return like the prodigal who woke in filth and remembered his father's face. Return like the watchman who lights the flame, though the tower stands alone. Return like the warrior who buries his shame in the dust and sharpens his blade again. You do not need to feel ready, you need to obey. You do not need perfect words. You need a faithful step. You do not need to feel strong, you need to stand. Because the strength is not yours, it is his, and his strength is not drawn from your feelings, it is drawn from your surrender. Faith is not a feeling, it is a fire. And fire does not whisper. It eats everything, so let it burn again. Let it burn your doubt, let it burn your delays. Let it burn the silence that has caged your voice. You were not made to live in ashes. You were made to rise in flame. Rise, for the watchman calls you. Were not born in shadow. You were born in light. But the world taught you to fear the dark, to shrink when the flame flickered, to doubt when prayers felt dry, to settle for survival when you were called to storm the gates of hell. But faith is not for those who wait for perfect conditions. Faith moves when the heavens are silent. Faith walks through wilderness with no sign in sight. Faith stands even while bleeding. You say your faith has fallen. Then let your knees touch the dust again, not in defeat, but in fighting back. Because every true coming back to life begins in the grave. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. Proverbs 24:16. There is no shame in falling. The shame is in staying there. For the righteous man falls 7 times and rises. Not by strength, not by pride, but by promise. You forgot that your scars are not signs of failure? They are seals of survival. Proof that even in the silence your soul still belongs to God. Return now, not to the shallow waters of comfort, but to the altar of fire, where men are broken down, where masks are melted, where the spirit searches bone and marrow and leaves only what cannot be shaken. You will not be rebuilt with emotion. You will not be brought back to life with entertainment. You will not be restored by shallow sermons and soft songs. You must be rebuilt by truth, by the ancient path, by the sword. And the silence, by the word that cuts deeper than any two-edged blade. Return to the wilderness where prophets are born, to the temple courts where tables are turned over, to the mountaintop where the voice still speaks in thunder. The Lord is not far. He is waiting where you left him. At the last place you obeyed? At the last altar you ran from? At the last gate you refused to guard? Go back there not to live in regret, but to take back the fire, to dig up what was buried, to weep if you must, but then to war. Because if you do not rise now, you will rot in delay. And delay is the devil's territory. He does not need you to sin. He only needs you to settle, to put off, to hesitate just long enough for your edge to dull and your heart to forget how to burn. But I forged in the refiner's fire speak now to the warrior in you. Not the wanderer, I speak to the man who once knew the flame. To the woman who once stood firm, though the earth gave way. To the soul that once sang through the storm, you are not gone. You are simply buried, and buried things can rise. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not beyond repair. You may have let go, but he has not. You may have fallen, but his hand is not shortened that it cannot save. You may have turned your face, but his eyes have not turned from you. Do not mistake silence for being gone. Do not confuse delay with denial. The fire may have gone out, but the altar still stands. You say, but I am too far gone, too numb, too lost. But I tell you, even dry bones can live. Fear not, for I have saved you. I have called you by your name, you are mine. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 1. That voice still speaks through the smoke, through the shame, through the rubble of your delay. He does not call you by your failure, he calls you by your name. The name sealed in blood, the name written before the world began. And if you would only rise, not in your own power, but in obedience, you would hear it again. But rising requires violence. Not against people, but against not caring, against doing nothing, against the whisper that says, rest a little longer. Because that whisper is not from God. It is the lullaby of hell sung to men who were once dangerous, but learned to live without fire. You were not made for lukewarm, not for half surrender, not for temple songs with no temple sacrifice. You were made for flame, for altar, for sword and silence, for sacred burdens and holy discipline. But you must choose. The Lord will not drag you back. He does not chain his servants, he calls them. And only those who answer rise, so rise. Tremble if you must, but rise. Crawl if you must, but rise with dust on your face and tears in your throat. Rise. Do not wait for motivation. That season has passed. This is not about feeling ready. This is about war. And in war the command is clear. Stand, return, fight. Even now the trumpet is sounding. Not in the sky, but in your spirit. Can you hear it? It calls you not to be perfect, but to be present. Not to be loud, but to be loyal. Not to impress, but to last. He is calling you back to the altar, to the battlefield, to the place where your name still echoes in fire. So what? Now you've heard the call. You felt the burn. The ashes of yesterday still cling to your skin. But now it is time to choose. Will you rise or rot? Will you obey or delay? Will you wear # advance under heaven's banner thee name or carry the cross, because there is no middle path? Not for the watchman, not for the warrior, not for the son or daughter who bears the mark of promise. You say, I believe, but belief without obedience is betrayal. You say, I still love God. Then prove it in blood, in silence, in fire. The world does not need your opinions. Heaven does not need your performance. But the King still demands your loyalty. I know your works that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spit you out of my mouth. Revelation chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. These are not words for the wicked. They are for the church. For the ones who once burned but settled into smoke. But you are not called to settle. You are called to stand. So stand even if your legs shake, even if your heart aches, even if your past screams louder than your present. Stand and let the fire fall again. Let it eat up the delay. Let it burn up the doubt. Let it turn every idol to dust. And when it does, do not run. Stay. Remain on the altar until only promise remains, until only obedience speaks, until your voice no longer cries, help me, but thunders, here I am. You were not saved to survive. You were saved to serve. You were not bought back to rest. You were bought back to rise. So rise as a man who has wrestled in the dust, as a woman who has wept in the wilderness, as a soul who has crawled through silence but never let go of the promise. Rise with your sword drawn again, with your armor put back on, with your eyes set like flint on the mountain of God, because the world is dark, the gates are broken through, and many who once burned now beg for bread. They once fed others, but you will burn again. Not by emotion, not by hype, by the oil of surrender, by the word you refused to ignore, by the fire you welcomed when all others ran away. If your faith has fallen, let this raise you, not softly, but violently, with holiness, with discipline, with the voice of God thundering in your bones. Stand, obey, last, burn. You are not done.